We'll open with prayer. Here we go. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, you have made us your people, and you see us through storms. You hold our hands. You hold us close. You hold us dear. Lord, help us see that you are always with us. Help us realize that we are yours. Help us in our struggles to always seek your face and the ways that you would have us go. We ask all these things in the name of your Son. Amen.
Amen.
So good to be with you all. And we continue this journey in Genesis. There's so much in these texts and so much a way for us to understand ourselves as we understand our forebears in the faith, and to know that there probably is nothing new under the sun. I mean, that's probably just a really true statement. When we left off last week, we were looking at Abraham's family and looking at the trouble that Abraham's sons had faced. Ishmael, who had been left with his mother in the wilderness to die. Isaac, who had been bound and prepared as a sacrifice, as he's asking his father, where's the lamb for the sacrifice? So clearly understood why they were where they were, and asking his father, where was the lamb for the sacrifice? And we don't know what Isaac really understood about that moment, but there's a chance that Isaac really understood that he was being bound himself for sacrifice, and how challenging a moment that would be for anyone, to come away from that and to go on with life, and to wonder, would my father really have taken my life? Like, would that have happened? Could it have happened that my father might have taken my life? So Ishmael, as we saw in last week, Ishmael and his mother Hagar go back to Egypt. This is her homeland. They go back to Egypt, and he continues his life there. And as God has covenanted and promised, there will be a nation made for him. God doesn't break covenant with us, even when we're disobedient. God is not one to break covenant. And so when Ishmael and Hagar head back off, God is a covenant keeper, and does indeed make a nation of Ishmael. We continue the story in Genesis with the story of Isaac and Isaac's family. And Isaac will marry a woman named Rebecca. And again, the family will be faced with barrenness. Yet another woman who is not quickly able to have children, and time passes, and Rebecca has not been able to conceive. And finally, she conceives, and she has twins. So it's a good thing now. At least we got a multiple birth in here, in this promise that we're going to have all of these descendants. Now at least we have a multiple birth, and Rebecca is going to have twins. But even in the womb, these twins are fighting. It's not a peaceful pregnancy for her. It's a difficult, challenging pregnancy, and the twins are fighting in the womb. And when they emerge from the womb, they're obviously fraternal twins and not identical twins, but their personalities, as we all who have children can attest, our kids' personalities can be very different. And these two have very different personalities. We're told in Genesis that Jacob, the younger of the two, is a quiet man. As he grows into a quiet man who likes to live among the tents. He's more of an indoors person. And Isaac, I'm sorry. Here we go. Already calling people by the wrong names. Esau, the older of the twins. So this is the son who is the heir apparent. The older son, he is an outdoorsy hunter, gatherer. He is that person. Well, the problem begins because the parents are different people. Isaac himself favors his older son Esau. That is his favorite child. He likes the child who hunts and gathers and comes back with all the great meat for savory food for him. Rebecca, on the other hand, is fond of Jacob. And we're going to see how that plays out. So, Andy, if we can start our slides, we'll get started with that. I'm going to, first of all, this is our reminder about our family tree. This is where we are. Ishmael having been born to Abraham and Hagar, Isaac having been born to Abraham and Sarah. Now Isaac and Rebekah have married and have these twins, Esau and Jacob. So we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So we've set that context that these two men are very different people as they have grown up. One's an indoorsy guy, one's an outdoorsy guy. This reminds me so much of Cain and Abel, right? So we should have been able to take all these gifts and all these skills and put them together to say, how is it that in cooperation and collaboration with each other, we do tremendous things together? And instead, it's become something very different for them. And so, Esau comes in from the field in this text that we are seeing here from Genesis 25. Esau has come in from the field. He's hungry, and Jacob is cooking. And Esau says, let me have some of that stew that you're cooking because I'm hungry. And Jacob says, first, sell me your birthright. Because this is the oldest son. So he, as I had mentioned earlier, he's the heir apparent. He's the one to inherit the family name and all that is from their father. And Jacob says, you can sell your birthright to me and we can talk about some stew. That might not have been the wisest trade. In the ways that we might barter for something, that might not have been the widest trade. And he was probably not about to die, because this is what the text tells us, right? Esau says, I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me? He might not have been that hungry, but maybe he really thought he was that hungry, that a birthright was worth that bowl of stew instead of him making his own bowl of stew at that point. He trades his birthright to Jacob, kind of a conniving younger brother. He trades his birthright for a bowl of stew. And he ate and he drank, but then he despised that birthright because he realizes what he's done. I mean, it can't take more than a nanosecond for him to realize that he's traded something far more valuable than what he has gotten in return. And this is only the beginning of what we're going to see with Jacob. So when we can go on to the next slide, please. So time passes and Isaac has grown older and is not seeing as well. And he calls Esau to him and says, I don't know when I might be gone from you. So since I would like to have a nice savory food before I'm gone, go out into the field and hunt some game for me and prepare me some food that I like it. And bring that to me to eat, and then I will go ahead and give you my blessing, because this is the other thing that he has to offer. Besides the birthright, he has this patriarchal blessing. And I want us to focus on the text that comes next, because sometimes we hear stories of people who say, I know that my parents really liked my sister or my brother better than they liked me. And I've heard lots of people say that. I was really when people talk about a black sheep in the family, people will say I really was that black sheep because I know that my parents really liked my sister or my brother more than they liked me. Well, here's the text that we're given from Genesis. This is from Genesis 27. So Rebekah's listening when Isaac spoke to Esau, and when Esau went to the field to go hunt, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father say to your brother, bring me game and prepare for me savory food to eat, that I may bless you before the Lord before I die. Therefore, my son, obey my word as I command you. Go to the flock, get me 2 choice kids, so that I may prepare for them savory food for your father, such as he likes, and you shall take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. So mom is now in the game. This is what dad wants. Dad says he wants some savory food. I'm going to tell my favorite son to get some food so that I can make savory food that he can give to his father. And Jacob says, Esau's a hairy guy, and I'm a man of smooth skin. And if my father feels me, I shall seem to be mocking him and bringing a curse on myself and not a blessing. And his mother says, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my word and go get the food. So he goes and he gets the 2 choice kids and brings them to his mother so that his mother can make this savory food that Isaac likes so well. Then Rebekah, and this is verse 15, Rebekah took the best garments of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. And she put the skins of the kids on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she handed the savory food and the bread that she had prepared to her son Jacob. So there's a lot of dishonesty in this story, right? Not only is Jacob not the best player in all of this story, but we see that his mother, Rebekah, is not the best player in this story either. She clearly has a favorite child. It's clearly her favorite child that she wants to receive not only the birthright that he's already received, but now receive this patriarchal blessing. And this is sad. This is a sad commentary, but a commentary again on humankind and jealousy and a desire to have that which is not ours. We see things that we want that are not ours to have, and sometimes we'll go to some pretty tremendous lengths to have those things. And here's Isaac in the midst of all of this, who can't see, and being taken advantage of by his wife and his younger son. Andy, if we go to the next slide, because we get kind of the end, more of this story. So Jacob goes in and says, my father, here I am. And I'm Esau, your firstborn. And already Isaac knows something's wrong. He knows already something's wrong. How did you get this food so fast? Seems like it might have taken you a little longer to go hunt some food for me. Jacob's already got an answer, because the Lord your God granted me success. And Jacob says, come near so that I can feel you and see whether you are really my son Esau or not. And Jacob goes to him, and Isaac is already aware the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau. So he's already suspicious that something has gone wrong, but he can't see. So he's taking his word for all of this. But because his hands are hairy like Esau's, he blesses him and he asks him again, "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob lies to him again and says, "I am." And he eats and he drinks his wine and he's all content. And Isaac says, "Come near and kiss me." And he could smell his clothing. So he smelled outdoorsy and woodsy, as Esau would have smelled. And he said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." And the blessing has now been pronounced. And it's a sad moment. It's a sad moment in the telling of this story to see what lengths Jacob's willing to go to, because he's not the older son, and he's always, even in the womb, he's kind of been that heel grabbing son, and we see the lengths to which he's willing to go to get what he would like to have from his father and from his brother. I mean, because he's not just deceiving his father, he's also deceiving his brother. And we go to the next slide, and we can see how this begins to play out for the two of them. Are we on the next one? Oh, yes. Okay. And as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of his father Isaac, his brother Esau came in from his hunting, and he also prepared savory food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father sit up and eat of some of his son's game so that you may bless me." Isaac says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm your firstborn son Esau." And Isaac realizes that the mistake has been made. Like, we can see that instantly when he begins trembling and says, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came? And I have blessed him. Yes, and blessed shall he be." And when Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, me also, father." But Isaac tells him, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau says, "Is he not rightfully named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and look, now he has taken away my blessing." And Esau asks, "Have you reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac says, "I've already made him your lord, and I've given him all his brothers as servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" And Esau asks him, "Have you only one blessing, father? Bless me, me also, father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac answered him, "See, away from the fatness of the earth shall your home be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you break loose, you shall break his yoke from your neck." And I do want to go back for a moment to talk about Cain and Abel and that initial offering of sacrifices that kind of came out of nowhere, but that so angered Cain. Um, and here we see again among brothers, how one brother can choose a path that can affect a family's relationships for generations to come. This is another one of those things where we'll see how a family's relationships have been affected, not just in that moment, but for generations to come. We look at this in terms of these two brothers within a family system, and clearly things happen within our family systems that are destructive. Like, I mean, there's no question that things happen within family systems that are enormously destructive and can wreak havoc on the family system and beyond. But I want to invite us to see this also a bit more metaphorically, to ask ourselves about our sisters and brothers just kind of in general, and the decisions that we make that can harm a sister or a brother, that can take something that's legitimately something that belongs to a sister or brother and displace that person. And we have to live with the consequences of what happens when that person is displaced. Isaac and Esau have, I mean, this becomes, I'm sorry, not Esau and Jacob. I'm getting my generations mixed up here. Esau and Jacob, from what we see right here, seem like there won't be any opportunity for reconciliation. Of course, we'll figure out later on that that's not true. We will figure out later on that the two of them can figure out how to make peace. But from this moment, it doesn't look peaceful. And we almost see the same kind of scenario being established that we saw with Cain and Abel. Like this could have ended up being a murder right here as it was. We're going to go to the next slide and see what happens that keeps it from being a murder. Now, Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." But the words of her elder son Esau were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice, flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him for a while until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger against you turns away, and he forgets what you have done to him." I'm going to interject here. I don't think he's ever going to forget what Jacob has done to him. I don't think enough time can pass for him to forget what Jacob has done to him. "Then I will send and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am weary of my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women, such as these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me?" Then Isaac calls Jacob and blessed him and charged him and says, "You shall not marry one of the Canaanite women. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, to your mother's father, and take as a wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and numerous, that you may become a company of peoples. May he give to you the blessing of Abraham, to you and your offspring with you, so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as an alien, land that God gave to Abraham." And thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. We have to talk about all kinds of things that we find in this text, and it's truly a powerful text. A mother's choices, a brother's choice, the things that we do that harm others. And I'm just going to suggest that the text does not suggest to us that Jacob has any remorse from having done what he's done to his brother. He doesn't seem to be sorry for what he's done, other than he's worried for his own safety now, because he realizes that Esau is angry enough at him that Esau could kill him. And now he's going to need to flee in order to keep Esau from killing him. Rebecca also doesn't seem remorseful. That she has urged her younger son to take the actions that he's taken and to try to trick their father. She doesn't seem too remorseful about that either. And that just brings us to a point of asking some questions about how it is that we make decisions, and within the context of having made those decisions that have harmed other folks, we might not even be sorry that we've harmed them. We might not see any reason to be sorry for not getting one of the things that we think we want for ourselves without having inflicted harm. And yes, he did. He sold his birthright. And that was probably a poor deal. Like we've established that was probably a poor deal on his part, because he might not have been hungry enough to think that he needed to sell his birthright to get a bowl of stew. That was probably a really poor deal on his part. And no doubt after that was all said and done, he was very sorry that he had made a poor decision on his own. But his brother did some of the rest of this. So we've got Rebecca and Jacob kind of teamed up together. There's some things that this obviously says about human nature. In those ways that we talk about all of the range of human nature that is possible for us, our ability to be jealous, to covet that which is not ours. And it's no surprise that one of those 10 commandments is not coveting things that are not yours, because we've already seen how our need to have things that don't belong to us can be destructive. So no surprise that ends up being one of those commandments that will ultimately come to the people called Israel. Stop coveting that which is not yours. But within us, as we saw in the text around Cain and Abel, if we don't figure out how to overcome the desires that we have that are not healthy for us, if we don't figure out how to overcome those desires are going to overcome us. And here we come face to face with Jacob having a desire to have been the older son, having a desire to have the birthright and the blessing. And whatever he had to do to get that, he was willing to do. That just brings about lots of questions for us, I think, particularly during the Lenten season. What are the temptations that particularly begin to gnaw at us and suggest to us that we might want to do something that can harm our neighbors? And how do we overcome a desire to harm somebody else, even if it seems like it's a little harm? This was a bigger harm, clearly. But even if it seems like it's a small harm, even if it seems like a small harm, how do we overcome those temptations? We start the Lenten season with this wonderful text of Jesus being in the wilderness at the beginning of, this is our gospel text from Luke, Jesus being in the wilderness and being tempted for 40 days and nights by the devil. who offers Jesus all of these things. I'm going to offer you food. I'm going to offer you power. And oh, yeah, and if you really are the Son of God, throw yourself off the temple because the angels will come and the angels will care for you. And it becomes that reminder to us at the very beginning of the Lenten season. We need to figure out what our temptations are and how we can step back from them and not be lured down to places where we are harming others. And I see the question, do you see any significance in Isaac blessing Jacob a second time after knowing of Jacob's lie? What I'll actually suggest to you is that Isaac probably at that point realizes that Esau could kill his son, the son who has now taken the birthright and the blessing. He realizes he probably does realize Esau could kill him. So the second blessing probably becomes a blessing of protection. Now I need to spare you. I've made this horrible mistake and I've given you a blessing that should have been given to your brother. And now I need to protect you. I need to do something to protect you from the harm that could potentially come to you because I've made this mistake. And we don't know what Isaac is thinking in all this. We know the text tells us he was trembling after Esau actually comes in and he hears Esau's voice. And he's already had suspicions that this was not really Esau who had come to him in the first place. And what is going on in Isaac's mind at this point about how did I make that mistake? I heard the voice. I knew you didn't sound like Esau. I knew that didn't sound right. And yet I gave you the blessing anyhow, even when I thought that it didn't sound right because I touched you and I smelled you and thought you had to be Esau. And he really wasn't. And now how does Isaac feel about having not given to his favorite son the blessing that he would have wanted to give him? Really hard texts. And I think this is the end of our text, but we're going to spend some time, Andy, kind of unpacking a little bit of this. And I will encourage you, if you got questions, to drop those in the chat, because I think probably lots of us are aware of instances in which folks have been dishonest, have taken advantage of others, have taken things that were not ours to take. And yet we'll see as this story progresses that God's made a promise to this family. God has made a promise to this family. These are Abraham's descendants still, and God's made a promise to this family. And Jacob's going to meet up with a lot of his own trouble. Like this will not be the end of his story either, because Jacob, who now has gone to Laban's household to find himself a wife, will choose a wife in Laban's household, the beautiful, wonderful Rachel, and believe that he is going to be married to her. Except after the wedding, he realizes it's not Rachel to whom he has been married. It's actually older sister Leah, because Uncle Laban says, oh, we don't do that in our family. Like we don't marry off the younger daughter before we marry off the older daughter. So you work for me for a few more years. You give me a few more years of your life and you can have the younger daughter too. But you can't have the younger daughter before you have the older daughter. And so this dysfunction that has begun in the family is just going to continue on for another generation for sure. It's actually going to continue on for a couple of generations, but it's going to continue on with Jacob having been taken advantage of, Jacob's going to in turn try to take advantage of Uncle Laban. He's not happy about that. He's going to try to take advantage of Uncle Laban because he has already figured out that this is hard stuff. Why can there only? Oh, I think I missed a question. Let me go back. Oops, I think I missed one. Um, I think Jacob was chosen, God's chosen person, because I don't believe there are any texts that say that God was angered by Jacob's trick. I think God could have probably anticipated Jacob's trick. God probably could have anticipated Jacob's trick. But I don't know. I, 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 ugh. I think God is always disturbed by our making decisions that are not our best decisions. I feel like God is always disturbed by that, even though God knows in our humanity we are going to make choices that are not the best choices for us to make. Because, I mean, we're human and we're not going to always make the best choices. But I think God is probably always disturbed by the choices that we make. Why can there only be one blessing? That's obviously how they understood their tradition, Tracy, was that he would pronounce a blessing before he died, and he pronounced his blessing, and he just pronounced it on the wrong son. But I think that was probably their tradition. And I think he didn't feel like he could retract the blessing that he'd already pronounced. The thing I was struck by in reading this today is the strangeness of not having enough blessing for both the sons. Yes, because this is what we want to think about our God, right? We want to think that our God is a God who doesn't run out of blessings for us. That there's no such thing as running out of blessings, and that there would be plenty of blessings to share. And found it sad and disturbing. It's disturbing to read Esau's begging for something for his father and being told there's nothing for him. And I'm not going to disagree. In this way that we're looking at how all of these folks in the family are being affected by these moments that we're seeing. Yeah, if I were Esau, I'd be pretty doggone mad. Like I would be. I would be pretty mad too. I would not be excusing my brother. I would not be trying to figure out how to say this is all okay. I would not. My immediate instinct would be to say, what an evildoer you are, brother. Like that, this was not kind and this was not right. And we've not been raised as people to do this, have we? Is this who we are? And this is why we also see what we see from Esau with him commenting that this is how you got your name as a heel grabber from the start. You got that name because you're willing to do pretty much anything. And Esau is kind of stepping back and saying, "See, yeah, you would kind of do anything to me, and this is awful." And no, we can understand his anger. We can understand his need to separate himself from this household because what he understands about what his mother has done, he may not really understand that at all because he wasn't there and he didn't see the hair that she's put on Jacob and the clothes that she had put on Jacob. So we don't know if he knows that his mother is complicit in all of this happening. But if he's figured that out in any way, if he's figured out that not only was there not another blessing, but mom was complicit in this, well, that's fractured their relationship forever. That's a forever fractured relationship if he understands just what his mother has done. And someone's asking, is Rebecca the villain in the story? I think they're all the humans in the story. I think that's how I think I would describe it. I think I would describe it as they're all the humans in the story. It's certainly not above Jacob to do what Jacob has done, because even if his mother suggested to him, you know what? I think you should just cheat your brother out of that blessing. Jacob could have said no. It would have been entirely possible for Jacob to have said no. And Jacob did not resist that temptation and he did not say no. Um, So, yeah, yeah. Jacob's sons learn how to deal with that favored youngest son, and this is going to be a theme that's going to run through this family. It is. It's going to be a theme. First between Ishmael and Isaac, Isaac becomes the favored son because he is the son of Sarah and not the son of Hagar. So he becomes the favored son. Then that dysfunction carries on into his own family, where Jacob becomes Rebekah's favorite son. When we get into Jacob's family, we'll see that dysfunction played out in a whole different way, because now we've set that story up for our understanding. Jacob is going to be married to two sisters and also have the slave women of those two sisters. And all four of those women will be giving birth to Jacob's children. And Jacob will have had 10 sons between three of those women. And it's when Rachel, his amazing, lovely wife that he's waited so long to have, when Rachel finally, barren as she appears to be for all those years, when she finally produces a son, that will be Jacob's favorite son. That will be the favorite son. And yeah, I see that somebody's asking. I remember reading the story as a child and not appreciating it. Well, yeah, this is kind of the hard part to explain to children. Jacob's got four wives and four women having babies for him, and it's not until the favorite one has a baby for him that we get to see all the dysfunction and drama. Up until then, these are all just his sons, until Rachel is actually able to produce an heir for him herself. And when that day comes, everything gets upended in the family. Everything gets upended in the family when she's able to produce a son. I find it interesting that in family systems work today, the father's blessing is still desired. Father's blessing or mother's blessing. I mean, I think both of those things are true. That offspring want the parents' blessing. They want to know that mom and dad are satisfied with them, that mom and dad are pleased with them, that mom and dad think that they have done well. That's so true. And it probably just depends on the family, as to whether it's the father's blessing or the mother's blessing that is being so highly desired. But somebody's blessing is going to be desired. Somebody's blessing really is going to be desired. And yeah, those are challenging things to work through, and particularly where there's stuff going on in a household that make it impossible for the parent whose blessing is being desired to give that blessing. Whenever there's, any kind of mental illness or substance abuse or anything else that can literally stand in the way of the parent whose blessing is being desired, being able to give that blessing, then turmoil is going to come, and folks are going to be working through for a long time in their existence what it means to not have gotten mother's blessing, father's blessing. They're going to be working through that for a long time. That still hasn't changed. And yes, Mary, you're finding it both disturbing and hopeful that God uses such flawed people for such wonderful purposes later on in their lives. It's a reminder to us that we're all flawed, right? I mean, like, all of us carry some kind of flaw in us, no matter how much we think we don't. We all do. We all carry some kind of flaw in us. And so what happens when we're able to acknowledge that we are all flawed, and that in spite of the fact that we are all human and flawed, God loves us, God believes in us, We'll see a whole lot more with the Jacob story. God still loves us. God still believes in us. God still believes that there's meaning and purpose for us. Even in the midst of all of these things, God still sees that there's more to us than our flaws. Like the worst day that we live is not, in God's eyes, the end all of our existence, because there is redemption. There is redemption and salvation, and that's not the end of us. That's not the end of what God can do with us. So it is disturbing and hopeful, but it is a reminder that we're all flawed. We all have within us the capacity to do enormous good or not to do enormous good. That capacity is within all of us, and we make choices in the way that we conduct our existence every single day. We make choices about whether our behavior is behavior that will be the example of us loving God and loving neighbor as ourselves, or whether we have allowed something else to disturb the balance of our thinking and our following those two great commandments. Because when other things get in there and throw that out of whack, and we stop loving neighbor as ourselves, then we end up hurting someone. We end up hurting someone. And we end up, there's a marvelous, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's from the Kenyan Eucharistic Rite. The prayer of confession speaks to us marring our own image and thereby marring the image of God that in which we're made. Because we've made choices in how we treat neighbor that have completely obliterated that image of God in us, and therefore have allowed neighbor to see something other than the image of God being reflected back from us. So these texts just remind us of that, because I would say for Esau in this text, seeing the image and likeness of God in Jacob would have been a challenge. I would say that would have been a challenge for him, because your brother's just taken away the very blessing that is supposed to be your blessing and left you with nothing. Your birthright's gone by your own bad decision. Your blessing's gone because your brother has taken it from you. Yeah, it'd be hard to see the image and likeness of God. And yet that is what we're called to see. We're called to see the image and likeness of God, even in the brother who has done us wrong. Someone was, there's a meme that I've seen about what it means to love Judas. Like it's kind of the true test of loving neighbor is whether we think we can love Judas. And Jesus loved Judas. Jesus didn't stop loving Judas, even though Judas had betrayed him. And if that becomes our true test for loving neighbor and caring for neighbor, that's a hard test. That's a hard test. So during the Lenten season, I think it becomes really instructive for us to look at texts like these, and rather than just kind of stepping back and saying, oh, that was really bad of Rebecca, to ask ourselves what moment of temptation could we have that would be a horrible moment of temptation. And there it is, Andy. Yes, you marvelously made us in your image, but we have corrupted ourselves and damaged your likeness by rejecting your love and hurting our neighbors. We have done wrong and neglected to do right. We are sincerely sorry and heartily repent of our sins. Cleanse us and forgive us by the sacrifice of your Son. Remake us and lead us by your Spirit, the Comforter. Yeah, absolutely. Such marvelous confession text from that Kenyan Eucharistic rite. We got one more comment here. I thought of what it would be the effects in the family if it was kept a secret that Jacob and his mother had together betrayed Isaac. And it may well have been a secret. Like, well, we're not told what Esau knew about Rebekah's involvement in this decision. We're not told what he knew about that. So that could very well have been a secret that only she and Jacob knew, and that she was willing to do whatever she had to do to protect, because she had to keep him alive. I mean, she realizes that Esau is pretty angry. Her goal is to keep Jacob alive so that her favorite son is not killed by the decision that the two of them have made. So a lot to ponder during this Lenten season about what it means to love neighbor, what it means to be faithful, what it means to just obey those first two commandments: love God, love neighbor as yourself. There's a lot in here, a lot about families and dynamics in families. As a priest and pastor, I've walked lots of journeys with a lot of families as parents and others have passed away. And these things are as real today as they were in scripture. As you're watching families literally disintegrate, when folks pass away, watching a family literally disintegrate in front of you, because now the glue that even kind of sort of held everybody together isn't there, and everybody can be honest about the fact that, Dad was awful to me. And now I can talk about the fact that Dad was awful to me. Well, Dad wasn't awful to you. Oh, yeah, Dad was awful to me. And you're watching the whole family just disintegrate. And I've seen it happen too many times, actually. And it's always sad, and trying to get people to a place of some kind of equilibrium where they can just have healthy conversation with one another, and even maybe seek out family counseling. Even after so many years have passed, family counseling is not out of the question, and maybe this is a good time for us to think about that. And the damage has been so great over such a long period of time that folks are like, no, we don't want to go to counseling with you. We don't want to do anything with you. We actually just really, now that everybody's gone, now that mom and dad are both gone, yeah, we don't need to see you anymore. Ever. We don't ever need to see each other anymore. So let's just call it quits. And it happens way too much of the time. If folks think that does not happen, it happens way too much of the time. Because hearts are just broken over decisions that people make. Yep, it is sad. It is so sad. I was working with one family. Mom was second to pass away, and it was like impossible for these three siblings to figure out how they could ever make peace with each other. Like they'd done what they needed to do to take care of mom while mom was alive, and as soon as mom was gone, it was like, oh no, we're so done with each other. We're just done with each other. Because everybody had a different story to tell about mom and dad and where they felt like they had been, and how they felt like, you really got everything and I got nothing. Yeah. And everybody was upset, and nobody was able to manage to get around that. And I had been hopeful that they might all have agreed to go to counseling and at least try, because it was so important to their mother that fracture, that ultimate fracture, not happen. And they had no interest whatsoever in trying to avoid that ultimate fracture. They just kind of let it go. So it was really sad, really, really sad. Any other questions? Because we're going to keep digging into Jacob's family story next time. Like I said, we're so far not being done with Jacob's family story, but we see this dysfunction just kind of carrying on through the generations in the family, and all the hurt and all the disappointment that will come as this dysfunction just kind of plays out among them. Would be interesting to see a counseling session between the mom and the two sons after the father is gone. Yes, it would be. And it would be interesting to see if she could be honest in that counseling session to talk about the fact that, yeah, so dad really liked your brother a whole lot more, Jacob, but yeah, I'm in the midst of all of this. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if she could be honest in that counseling session to say, so yeah, I'm kind of an instigator in all of this because I love this one more. It's a lot for us to ponder, a lot for all of us to ponder particularly during this Lenten season. It's a lot to ponder. So we'll just dig in more deeply next week and continue talking about all of the dysfunction and the hurt and the pain. But that's another thread in my probably 30 seconds that I've got left. The thread that I want us to keep in mind is that this is the lens through which folks are seeing the world. They're seeing the world through this hurt and pain, right? So this is Esau's lens of having been betrayed by his brother. So this is the lens through which he's seeing things. Jacob is seeing things through the lens of somebody who's not necessarily honest. That's how he's seeing the world. So, yeah, a lot for us to ponder. So thank you all. Thank you all for continuing this journey. And so much redemption possible. Yes, yes. Absolutely. Thank you all for continuing the journey. We'll dig more deeply into Jacob and his family next week and see what more we can learn about this family of Abraham. All right. Thank you all. See you next week.